year is 1985. An up-and-coming anime director and an artist worked together on a film. By the 1990s, Mamoru Oshii would have directed the legendary Ghost in the Shell, and Yoshitaka Amano would have created the iconic worlds of Final Fantasy. Both are now iconic figures of Japanese popular culture. The film they created, Angel's Egg, has never been released in the West. Until now. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Thom and Joe Show. I am Tom.
I am Joe. And
this has been a long time coming.
This has been a very long time coming. Not that we
ways than
didn't
one.
already have our own copies of it. I had a 240k copy of it for a while, and I've seen this, but it wasn't exactly kosher. But there was no easy way or pretty much legal way to watch this for 40 years because
Uncut.
This was one of those anime made during the bubble economy, really expensive, where they just threw money at everything, and not all of it was successful. A lot of it was not.
Some of it was Akira. Some of it was this.
Well, and Akira wasn't successful when it first came out.
No.
That was an extremely expensive movie that took its time to grow a little bit.
Yeah, you can basically blame Island Records for the fact that Akira became popular, and then everyone watched it, and then when everyone went, oh yeah, let's start a company called Manga Entertainment, and here we are now, 35 plus years later, going, well, this anime thing's pretty cool.
Yes, this is a separate cut of that. Because this is a pure art film, and this is a pure art experimental film that only gets made once every 20 to 40 years. When a society has way too much money than it knows what to do with. And that is not a diss on art films or anything, it's just the nature of things. You do not make something this expensive with this kind of product. And that's just how it is. And another thing I would put on the same level is when we had the anime Gold Rush in 2004 and 2005. There was that series called Technolize with artist Yoshitoshi Abe, the director of Steins Gate, the writer of Lane, and yeah, they all got together, and the first episode didn't have speech for the first 15 minutes or so. It was just
18 minutes, yeah.
18 minutes, okay, 18 minutes. Something around there. But it was the same kind of thing where this was, and that did it for a full series. And the problem with them doing it for a full series is they had to cut out a few episodes, which means the ending was extremely rushed, especially the really expensive stuff, but it was similar. It is a lot of metaphor.
The tone is similar.
The tone is very similar. It is. Everything is. Is this the end of the world? Is this the beginning? Is this just the fucking cycle we're gonna have to live for all of humanity? And
I still think we yet to have a thing for the 2020s. I think, as I said, we've been having this. We actually had this conversation. I think, and the nearest thing I could come to think of it was Puparia, which is the short animated film made by one guy in his room, which I think is more the sort of the auteurism I think you're getting from out of anime now. It's just don't need to spend 300 million yen on a film that basically no one sees when you can do it in your bedroom and just take 3 years to make it.
And also that's the part of how the producers work. No longer they don't put, now that they're getting all of this American money and Crunchyroll and all of that, they're not making better product, they're making more of it. You have more anime than you have ever had, but it is all of the production of it is getting strangled, and there are, even among the biggest ranks of it, there are holes showing. What gets done to One Punch Man.
Oh God, yeah, that is a kettle of fish that I had to say, yeah. And and you get things like Studio Whip working on like half of the season, half of the anime in an entire season, and going, that's really healthy to run an industry where like one studio is animating like 4 or 5 of the biggest shows at once. I'm sure that is a sustainable thing over a long time period, particularly given like how
Yeah.
hawkish Japanese foreign policy is at the moment. I'm sure that'll last well.
Hmm.
Anyway, we have to go back 40 years to talk about like a film made by. It's time to talk about Mamoru again, Joe. It's time. It's Mamoru time.
Yes, Mamoru Oshii, who had an interesting career, but this would
Yeah.
more inform where he was going.
Yeah, because the immediate film I thought of when I watched this, in terms of it being, this is a experiment. This is like basically we had this comment when we talked about Sky Crawlers, where Mamoru Oshii's style is far closer to European directors than it is towards, I would say something like other anime directors. But Oshii basically Oshii has done live action stuff, but Oshii
Yeah,
directs like he's out of like the French New Wave rather than, you know,
yeah. Yeah, if
yeah.
you've there is a live action film that he
Mm.
did for our like Haibane Renmei film club. I forget what it is,
Oh,
but
Avalon,
yeah, where
Avalon.
it is just about like just an animator trying to get shit done, and
Mm.
it just becomes this bizarre like comedy.
Oh,
David Lynch
Talking Head.
Talking Head, yes. I should have
Yes.
remembered that, but yeah, Talking Head.
Same as Liverpool.
It gets to David Lynch, and it's kind of a comedy, kind of a yakuza drama,
Yeah.
maybe.
Mm.
It's a lot of these little things, and it's a lot of people. I
Yeah.
am this person. I am directly talking to the audience about what this means or what I do, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It is an art film. It is not as far as Angel's Egg goes. I mean,
No.
nothing goes this far to
No.
being a silent film in 1985
Yeah.
and just, being a journey or being like Tarkovsky would tell you you need a little more dialogue, man. Or you need
Yeah.
to like tighten this up a little bit.
Yeah, there is Tartovsky's fingerprints are all over this. But
Oh,
like by
absolutely.
1984, like Oshii had basically was already like a veteran of like of anime. He'd done obviously most notably by this point he'd done Urusei Yatsura, which is and then the two Urusei Yatsura films, including Beautiful Dreamer, which kind of has a similar sort of vibe going on, or the starts of a similar ish vibe going on with
Eh,
this, and
it is
kinda
still recognizable as that
product.
series because it starts out and they are going to a Nazi themed party. And it should be
Mm.
noted that these people are absolute morons. This is a comedy
Yeah.
series. These people
Yeah.
are absolute goddamn morons, and they're the kind of morons who go to a Nazi themed costume party. So
Yeah.
like that
And that's
it
us demonetized.
yeah, that is. But I just have to explain Beautiful Dreamer because
Yeah.
people walk into Beautiful Dreamer like and it's like, "Whoa, what's going on? I thought this was a great anime film." And it's like it is, but it's a comedy
Yeah.
by the maker of Inuyasha, and most of these people are
Mm.
absolute idiots. So that
Mm-hmm.
you have to know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And an,
He'd also
an
done Dalos at this point as
Dalos,
well,
yes,
which is
I was
like
just going to talk about
Dalos.
Dalos, which
Yep.
a
Mm.
YouTube video says the first OVA ever made. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's true. I don't have the.
Mm.
I just know I've seen it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a
It's a.
little bit of where
Mm.
Oshii was going, but it's also a little bit of what they were liking, and it's just like everybody was liking Alien at the time, so it was kind of this this Alien. I don't want to say knockoff, but it's just one of those style things where it's all these people in space. They kind of have trucker hats and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's a company, and I'm probably misremembering a lot of it, because it's not really memorable, but you could tell this is where Mamoru Oshii was going to go, because it gets into pet labor territory about how
Yeah.
this kind of stuff gets done, and the sacrifices and the politics and all of that. And I would say the big thing is it doesn't gel, and the music is terrible. The music is early 80s synthetic, and the composer doesn't have like a good handle on making that work as itself for a movie or an OVA score. So
Yeah.
like it's okay, it's a good starting point. Like I would really only watch it if you're a completionist. That it has a
Yeah.
really
It's
awesome key image where there's just this astronaut walking through a graveyard, a space graveyard, and that it's metal as fuck. But the rest of the movie is just like it's an '80s OVA about space where you kind of have to click off two sources, and one of them's aliens, and I don't know what you would call the other one. The
yeah.
remake of High Noon in Space,
Oh
uh,
God.
oh, with Sean Connery, like what Overlord or something like that. Um, that would be probably the second one, even though it probably predates
Yeah.
it, because a
Yeah,
lot
there
of
is
this
that
is
sort of list that you got for 80s OVAs, and it's like, here, pick two like things that are popular at the moment.
yeah,
Stick these into your series.
and
Go,
most of them are
go make a
American
thing.
because that's the entire '80s
Yeah,
anime. Like Bubblegum Crisis is Blade Runner and Cities on Fire. I mean, uh, yeah,
that's a
um,
mix.
it's a mix, all right. But it's like that.
Yeah,
Oh, why am I losing everything today? I'm again. This is going to be another
yeah,
one where I'm screwing up names all over the place, and I apologize.
yeah. That's what I'm here for. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, it's that period. It comes, and then it's sort of like the Angel's Egg does come from this like very heady period in like Japanese like anime productions where it's like basically here, take this like this suitcase of yen notes, make us a thing. We'll make sure it gets released in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
At this point, also he like so the kind of I guess the best way to talk about Angel's Egg is kind of the production of it, because it's sort of like this does not start as like an original thing. It was going to be a Lupin film, which seems to be like
Okay.
how half of like the productions of like most like other Japanese pop culture seems to do. It's like here, have like basically it was going to be this Lupin the Third is a long running series. We talked about it when we talked about the woman named Fujiko Mine. Go watch Lupin; it's great. You kind of get a really good idea of like the major figures in anime, because literally every major anime director you can think of has worked on Lupin.
Yes.
It's like yeah. So basically, Oshii was going to do this film where like Lupin was going to question his existence, and there was going to be a sort of Noah's Ark theme sort of thing going on in A Fossil of an Angel. Like, Lupin questioning his existence also appears in, The Mystery of Mamo, which is a very strange, like, other thing, but, Lupin is just sort of this thing that just every Japanese director gets to do at least one of.
Hmm.
I mean, Miyazaki did one. So kind of like and then the other major figure kind of enters the picture. I'm trying to find out like where I literally went and tried to find out where Amano had come onto the project, and I genuinely think just Amano and Oshii just knew each other previously. It was like
Yeah, they seem
sort
like
of
people
not
who would know each other.
yeah. Yeah. Do we need to talk about? Do we need to explain who Yoshitaka Amano is? Like,
A little bit. I mean, it feels like he's
yeah,
been with us forever, but it's just like we don't
yeah,
know where he came.
yeah,
We kind of do.
yeah.
Um,
We
he
do.
worked in like the '60s in Tatsunoko production on
Mm-hmm.
Speed Racer, and
Yep.
he he was created a lot of iconic characters like Gatchaman, Tekkamon, and Kashurn, Robot Hunter,
Cashier is probably
which would get another 80s OVA during this time. But like,
yep.
uh, the biggest thing we know him from is from Final Fantasy, but where he kind
Yeah.
of got on his own thing up to here is probably the Vampire Hunter D
Yeah,
novel series. Like
novels.
he does the illustrations for those,
Hmm.
and he does. It's very dark. It's very detailed, and he has a very specific character design where everybody is very pale faces. Everybody has the. I don't know how you would even describe their clothing. It's like a very
Yeah.
French alien, I would say, something like that. This
Yeah.
feels like City of the Lost Children done by aliens. It would be my best
Yeah.
description of
Yeah.
how he does
The
that.
best way I could describe Amano's art is first off, it's like completely unmangarish. It's like it is probably the closest thing I can think of it is like like how Japanese traditional wood block print looks to an extent, but there is more like Art Nouveau, and whereas like he obviously is working usually like the pen or pencil on paper, and everything is very wispy and everything is sort of like obviously the style refined down. I mean, I own the massive Amano art book, The Sky, and you can see his art style sort of refining down. But even for things like via the Vampire Hunter D, you can see his style, the sort of style of the style. He also did like a load of illustrations for a lot of pulp novels. So, for example, like some of the Michael Moorcock novels. I think this may have been contemporaneous with like the very very early Final Fantasy films, Final Fantasy games. But he was doing like artwork for the Western audience a lot
Yeah.
earlier before a lot of
Yeah,
other
he
people
worked
were
with
doing
Neil Gaiman on
that sort
Sandman:
of
The
thing.
Dream
The
Hunters.
kind of the more important thing is that at this point he is entirely freelance. So he's
Yes.
just doing basically working with whoever he wants to do. He kind of otherwise in this period is doing character designs for sort of stuff I don't think like you could even find today, like stuff like Stars and S and Radio City Fantasy, and which doesn't even have an English Wikipedia page, and an anime called Bismarck, which recently got re-released in the US as Saber Rider and the Star Sheriffs, and I've just activated like some 40-somethings, like the
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
that's their sort of
Like it
FBI
this
style
and this
trigger
was
phrase.
before
They've just woken up.
this was before my
Anyway,
time.
but that's sort of what he's doing at that point, and he and Oshii basically work on this together.
Hmm. Yeah, this is basically the work of both of them
Hello.
and giving themselves really deep thoughts about religion and the world and
Yeah,
all those other things.
yeah, indeed. But he's sort of like, as I said, but he is obviously he is the artist for this, and it's kind of another interesting thing. And I think this is Amano's art does drive this up. Amano is not just the character design of this. I think it's
No.
really important to note because, like, basically, Oshii wanted to make this a comedy.
Oh dear.
Oh
Yeah.
boy, yes. Remember, I mean, yeah, I mean, it is worth noticing that Oshii had like just walked off like Project A-ko and like was
Hmm.
just but basically he was doing like stuff on this and went, no, I'm leaving now, and like everyone went, ham on it, what are you doing? And it's like, no, Oshii, you can't just stop doing Project A-ko, and then he went, no, I'm doing this, I'm making Angels, which is sort of the headspace I think
Hmm.
Mamoru Oshii is in at this
Yeah.
point, I think. It's
It
like,
could be
what are you doing?
argued that this is what made Mamoru Oshii into the man he is today, which
Yeah.
is to say, the man who didn't smile until he played the Skycrawlers video game and got to do
Yeah.
the neat things where he could like play as the teacher and switch around and get behind the person and the shot to defeat the enemy and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then after he smiled, he made Vladlove, which we have covered, and we have covered the Skycrawlers, the anime movie, which is
Yeah.
a lot more serious than it. That I would say Skycrawlers is more my kind of this kind of movie, in that it's my thoughts. Like there, with a lot of these art films, you have to act upon it. It doesn't feel like there is like the two things that happen in these kinds of movies are like giant, massive, world shattering things, and that's the only two things that happen in these movies.
Yeah.
Whereas in Skycrawlers, the main character and Kusanagi are always trying to figure out how do we get out of this, even if we're in this endless cycle, even if there's not much we can do because this is what the world has decided, that they are still going to fight this. And that is me. That is more me than this. It's more ponderous, which I don't mean to say it's bad, but this is for a very specific type of people, and I was absolutely frightened when they had the 40th anniversary screening, and it was just at this dine-in AMC, and they didn't they marked where our seats were, but you had to sit at a table next to 3 other people, and I didn't know how these people were going to react. But
yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's sort of shall we sort of like this thing doesn't really there isn't much of a plot, but shall we start talking about this thing proper? So the vibe of this is I can only describe it as Tartovsky-esque.
yeah,
It is it is a very like. We've joked earlier that obviously this is just that Andrei Tarkovsky would go, you need to have more dialogue, but this is basically an experimental, art film that just happens to be animated. Like, there is elements of this that I could go, and we'll get to the other thing involving this at some point.
Yes, but
Yeah.
there is definitely they've seen Solaris, absolutely,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it mostly feels like Stalker, which is those
Yes.
constant stark landscapes, and it constantly pans across it, and there is an extremely limited handful of characters, in this case,
Yeah.
2, and maybe they run across some other people, but they don't really have much to do with anything. Everything is the background, everything is the surroundings, and it is just an experience, and you just have to absorb the experience while kind of putting together what these various elements might mean or might not mean.
Yeah, indeed, and that's sort of like the thing. This is not obviously when we compare this to obviously something like well, let's be frank here. Let's compare this to Evangelion. There is an intended sort of like influence, and obviously it uses the image, because obviously both this obviously uses, as we'll come on to in a moment, a lot of like Judeo, particularly Old Testament Christianity imagery. This is like obviously we'll get onto this, and obviously there are various schools of thought. There's obviously misinterpretations by some people, and various other sort of like things. This is a film that unlike Evangelion is using this imagery very, very deliberately and very for a purpose. And there is but out of that purpose comes various sort of ways you can read this film. And is this intended to be apocalyptic? Is this intended to be some sort of like retelling of something, the obviously the whole Noah's Ark thing, and is this intended to be is there a Judeo-Christian a series of symbolism this is being used, or is this about something else? And it runs through the entire film. It's like there is very, very, it is allegorical, if not outright, alluding to, biblical imagery.
Hmm.
Mm.
And most of the dialogue in this movie is just the one of the main characters recounting a the story of Noah's Ark,
Yeah, yeah,
and um, the main
yeah,
schism between this and religion is that in Noah's Ark, the dove they send out comes back. In this one, what if the dove didn't? What if the dove never
mm.
existed? Something like that. And yes,
Yeah,
I was just looking at the Wikipedia page and I did get that. That's
yeah,
not my own thought.
no, indeed.
And
Yeah,
I kind of
yeah, no,
I have my
yeah.
interpretations, but I'll talk about it at the end. I don't want
Mm-mm.
like as I've learned with a lot of my interpretations, especially with stuff like this, that is an open book with how you process it, how you
Yeah.
go through it, or how you see
Mm.
it. It is very much what you put into it is equal to what you take out of it.
Yeah, indeed, it is a reflective, a reflective, and I use that as in a very, very deliberate way. Is a film that reflects what you put into it. No, indeed.
Hmm.
The kind of, so there are three really obvious things. First off, the animation is fucking incredible in this.
It is
This
amazing.
is like, it is genuinely, there are some, it is, it's not limited. Limited is the wrong word. It is very refined, and it's very painterly, I think, in lack
It
of
is
a better.
very specific. It
Yes.
like it what animation there is incredible, but it is a little bit limited by what the 80s could
Yeah.
do and what you could do
Mhm.
with the background. Not that like the backgrounds are gorgeous. Just to
Yeah.
it is one of the few things where you can actually create the world Yoshitaka Amano has in his head.
Yeah.
Because there are some adaptations, like there's an OVA of Vampire Hunter D
Mm.
around this time, and it is very basic. Like the design of D is there, and there's some like paintings where you get a sense of what Yoshitaka Amano, but it looks very cheap. Like some of the designs are like the farm woman's braids. They will like
Mm.
they're little balls and they go flow back and forth in key animation and other sequences. It is not like the hair of the girl in this story who's you can just like see the individual parts of it flow, and there are still limitations to this where like clearly like the back of her hair is occasionally a like background, and
Mm.
they're just animating the individual parts of it, but you have to understand that is by hand. That is somebody
Yeah.
hand animating all of that.
Yeah. This
And
is
that's
this is still, yeah. There's the thing I because obviously one of the animators on this, I think one of the key animators on this, unfortunately, let me do has passed, which was the God, where did I find him? Bloody hell. Well, yeah, one of the key animators on this was, it's really, really impressive to like watch this. It's like in comparison. So, yeah, this was the Shichiro Kobayashi, who did a lot of like the key character animation, and obviously he would go on and do Revolutionary Girl, Uta, and Berserk and Lupin the Third, which is like it's a trio of things that I like, and it's like really
yes, but
impressionistic art
it's
style, But
one of the go-to people for the
yeah,
when you want really good key animation.
yeah, yeah,
And like you can sort of tell
mm,
because it's like I watched the 4K and you can kind of see where there is a layout and they have part of the character layout, and then they have like especially the hands. Like the girl
yeah,
does this little hand motion where she like it's kind of like she's washing her hands, it's kind of like a
mm,
prayer, and it's what starts the movie.
yeah,
And there is a little jitteriness because this is
Yeah.
all being done by hand with
Yeah.
hands, which
That's
are already a
definitely yeah.
notoriously difficult thing to do. Ask any artist. And
Mm.
it is an important image,
Mm.
obviously, because it's at the top. And it is one of those things that uh, a film normally that's animated wouldn't do this
No.
much work, but this is what it would
No.
do. And we have, and especially Yoshitaka, I am getting Amano. We're gonna just
Yoshitaka
go.
Amano. Yeah.
Yeah,
Amano's good.
my
Amano's good.
name, my ADHD affects my ability to remember names, and it's really affecting me right
Yeah.
now. And I apologize. But
Yeah.
Amano, if you were to do his, it's not just like animating the world; it's just
Mm.
creating the world and creating things in it. Because if you have a normal world, you have models of stuff, and
Mm.
there's you can see some influence. There's some like Western European influence and maybe a little bit of Eastern European in there, but all of these little devices, all of these little technologies, like literally the only thing you probably have a model for is like the little flasks the girl like fills
Yeah.
up and drinks and then fills up again and then piles around the bird. And
Yeah.
but the
Yeah. I
all
mean,
of all of
there's
this has
some.
to be
Yeah.
custom built, which
Yeah.
as a person trying to write a sci-fi novel, it's hard to even think of this, much less have somebody else draw it.
Yeah. This is not to mention the like colossal sort of sphere that acts as this sort of like location, sort of artificial sun, where it's like, yeah, this is like, and you go, oh, that's really, and then you see the detail on it, and it's like,
Yeah,
no, there's like individual statues like mounted onto this thing, and it's like, yeah, that might be a still image being pan and scanned over. That still looks fucking incredible.
yeah, like it,
The
and
film I'm
it's
gonna.
one of the earliest in, and it's
Mm,
just this like mechanical eye of God, and what you take out of it is up to you. But it's one of the first
yeah,
things the soldier sees.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, is this rise of this mechanical eye of
Mm,
God, and it has saints, statues of I imagine
mm,
saints or
yeah.
believers or something around it. It comes
Mm-hmm.
back later, and then it's just like, oh, this is kind of what this is. Discuss what it means, and
Yeah.
we're not going to tell you. That your guess is as good as anybody else's.
Yeah, the style I would compare to, and I keep coming back to this film, although it's a film I don't think we'll ever talk about on this podcast, is Belladonna of Sadness, which is this
Yeah.
very influential, experimental sort of like anime film, and it is mostly, as I said, pan and scan, and obviously very limited animation, but again, it's this incredibly impressionistic, incredibly visually it is essentially one illustrated style, essentially de facto, manifested onto animation, and this is, I
Hmm.
think, will be you will never get unless it's something like done as a passion project or something. You will
Yeah.
never get an Amano animated film like this. This is like as close as you will ever get to Amano's style being actually put onto animate, and I don't think it wouldn't work if you were like to obviously to use computers. It must be hand done. It's as Amano works
Hmm.
entirely by hands, so therefore your film needs to be entirely by hand, and in this day and age that is a very, from the view of the anime industry, a very outdated way of making a film.
Yeah. And that was another studio that had unlimited money, and
Yeah.
they made three movies that just bombed and then they
Yeah.
died. And Belladonna of Sadness just wasn't brought up by anybody until Turn Classic Movies just showed it, and it's like, wow, this is actually pretty incredible. Like,
Yeah.
but it is Belladonna of Sadness is a rough watch. It is,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
It's
it is.
dated poorly in its
Well,
gender politics, shall we say?
kind of, sort of, but it is about medieval politics
Yeah.
and a woman going through medieval politics, and it
Yeah.
was very much a '60s mentality. Uh,
Mm.
but that doesn't mean it is a great film. Its heart is very much in the right place. It is very much a feminist view of how women were
Yeah.
treated in medieval times, which is absolutely terrible. It just presents it as is as much as you can with watercolor.
Yeah.
Because the big thing in Belladonna's Sadness is watercolor painting is it's
Yeah.
aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. And as we've obviously considered its influence upon, Fujiko Mine, and definitely it's there, and it's definitely, and obviously you have to sort of, go, this is another weird, interesting film made with a very limited. Ironically, as I think we mentioned when we were discussing this, the animation on this is by Studio Dean, which is
Yes.
like a very strange thing to sort of consider. I mean, obviously, I think it was Dean because Dean had also done Urusei Yatsura, so obviously I think Oshii was like, yeah, guys, can you do this, please?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very
Yeah.
strange thing to go
Studio
for, yeah.
Dean is probably one of those that's like it's a they probably had their time in the 80s, or they had a time, and then their time ran out and their hits ran out,
Yeah.
and
Now they're doing
like now
garbage.
now now it's where it it's going to be very odd, but there's a series called Eat Man from 1997, and it was where the president of B Train started to get his idea of getting animators on a project that is cheap and kind of
Yeah.
making it like making a project that, had no money behind it, had very limited animation,
Yeah.
but it was about things and it tried to be about things. Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where that's kind of what happened to them. And like I'm looking through their 2000 library and not a whole lot of it. Like
Rough.
they did a lot of Murray-sama, which is at a Catholic school, which doesn't need to have all of this stupid, or it's not stupid, but not this fancy
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah,
but
that's the
like
problem with Dean. Dean basically became the budget option, or you want to adapt a, like, I don't know, a visual novel like Higurashi, or a visual novel like Hakuoki, which we talk about next in some point in,
yeah,
in
well we're
2026.
also doing Simone, which was done by Dean. I'm looking at
Ah,
it right now.
oh boy, yes,
Yes,
yes.
so I did we both pick top ones by Dean?
Oh god, I think we did. That's
We
terrifying.
did.
But yeah,
Okay,
it was
but
basically
you
where,
will see
yeah,
what we are talking about.
yeah.
Like Dean
It's
is not what you expect here. It's like they are the Falcom of the anime, and Falcom was like they were huge in the 80s. They were one of the most influential RPG developers during the 80s. And then Legend of Zelda came along and redefined the rules, and then Final Fantasy
yeah.
came along and redefined the rules. But they are what like the nerds in who played D&D in Japan went to when they wanted to
Yeah.
play computer game RPGs, and now they make good stuff, but it's very budget and it feels like 2 generations ago. All of their games feel like two
Yeah.
generations ago, even though they are trying their best and they are trying to make the best stories. But that's just how they work. And at one point, when they were on the verge of crisis, they decided, like, we're going to pay writers to make these stories and we're going to make them cheaply, but the story is going to carry it. And that's how they went about their business until they kind of
Yeah.
made a comeback in the 2010s.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Dean are journeymen of anime, and they've done some reasonably interesting stuff, and they've done some utter trash, and they keep going. That's how you make. That's unfortunately when you're not a particularly adept studio, or you just basically make stuff like oh god, all of Hitalia for some reason. Anyway, yeah, this is, but then obviously Dean. This is Studio Dean in their sort of glory days of the 1980s, and this looks incredible. So that's the sort of part one. Part two, this film has a very, very reduced color palette, which gives it a particular like vibe. Which
It
is
is
very.
it is extremely stark. It
Mm,
is it is
yeah.
quiet, it is stark, it is there is a sense of loneliness. There's a dismal sense of, I don't want to say hopelessness, but there is this feeling of emptiness around the whole
Mm.
thing. Like that, the girl will often go through villages and there is nobody there, and the people who are there are ghosts, which is a thing that would be borrowed for Technolize later on, but that's another story for
Yep.
another day.
Yep. No, the other thing I particularly think worth noting, particularly in terms of is how light and shadow is used. There's a sequence about 10-15 minutes in where she's at the side of a river, and obviously there's this sudden noise, and she's startled. And before that, there is this shot of her face going into shadow, where it's just, it's so, like, there is a sense of ominousness to it, and it's really, it's like a 15-second cut, and it is just like, wow, that is a hell of a shot for, like, to create such a mood and such a sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Like this is a huge amount of mood and like tone,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just thinking about what all of this means in of itself. And we haven't talked about the plot much just because there is about 5 minutes of it in this 71 minutes. I mean, maybe 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of watching them journey around this post-apocalyptic world, which I'm cool with. These
Yeah.
I like these exploring these empty areas where people used to be and just think about it. It's just like, gee, no surprise I was an Indiana Jones fan and I wanted to be an archaeologist, but I am too much of a klutz to be an archaeologist, like, for
Yeah.
what they really do, which is just like very slowly and very carefully handle every millimeter of this place. But
Yeah. No. Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
but this is like
I
being
want to
able
crack a
to
whip at people.
explore these areas without like, oh, do I have to
Yeah.
preserve this? Or it's I let I mean, I like being able to wander around at night by myself like I used to be able to. Now I don't really do that anymore, but
Yep.
like when it used to be, there were 24-hour stores and there was some life. You could just go into the night and enjoy the quiet and just think about everything. And that's kind of what Angel's Egg does. You think about like who lived here, what were they doing, what is this space, and what is this for? And that's a lot of how this operates. And like you don't know what anything does until it like does something. um
Yeah. Yeah, there's kind of, this is going to sound like a very weird comparison. What it reminds me of, in particular, in terms of particularly when you got the scenes of the boy and the girl, they have no other names. They're literally the boy and the girl. I mean, this is, as Joe, this obviously got a dub when they released it this year.
mhm.
And there are like, that's the other thing. There's like the dialogue in this is beyond sparse. Like, I think, like, I've watched this a couple of times when doing this, when obviously getting ready for this. One of the time I didn't even bother with subtitles because it is just like the apart from like one scene, there is like basically the dialogue are like, who are you, what are you doing? It's like it's like the first line of dialogue I think is spoken about a minute in, and then the next line of dialogue is 25 minutes in.
Mhm.
And this is like a 70 minute. This is like a 70
And,
minute film. It's like, it's that level of sparse.
and the second main character, the soldier, doesn't show up
Yeah.
until that point, which he hops off a bunch of, to tell you how this movie works. It's a bunch of tanks, but they look like they run out of off of bioenergy and blood and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
is an obvious metaphor.
Very
But
Amano. Look, very Amano art as well. Like that very biomechanical sort of thing, obviously,
yeah,
that you
it
get.
is. It
Particularly, yeah.
it's also kind of an alien influence. I wouldn't say fully, but it
Yeah.
just has that
No.
like
Giga.
it just this biological machinery, and just it's it's very odd, it's very out of place, and it's very different from what you would normally look at. It's very, if you designed a tank in Silent Hill, like in Silent Hill 3
Yeah.
at the hospital where, the hospital's walls are skin and stuff like that. It's something that would come out of that. And that's
Yeah,
kind of,
definitely.
it's it's a familiar world, but it is entirely different from uh what you would think, or you know it's
Yeah.
different enough that everything is strange, even as you recognize what
The
things
purpose of it,
are
yeah.
and what people are doing.
Yeah. I mean, so they are literally like, I think they have about 10 or 15 lines each, but there's sort of like, there is a sensibility to like all of this where it's just like it is pared back and pared back and pared back to like the degree of which there is like, don't get me wrong, there is compared to this, considering this is like 70 minutes long, a reasonable amount happens. It's not like, the very Tarkovsky sense. And there obviously is a lot of Tarkovsky. There is a lot of Tarkovsky in this film, and I don't think you could escape the fact there is a lot of his influence in this. But the sort of that light and that sensibility and that sort of the sort of refined animation, it's all very dreamlike. It's like it's sort of like the imagery. There's almost this occasionally in places this sort of free associative imagery, like particularly later in the film where we got these sort of things, and then this is sort of everything is spectral. There's this sort of bizarre sequence later where we saw these sort of spectral fishermen chasing spectral fish, and it's this sort of this shadow, this ghost of something that came before.
Mm-hmm.
These people aren't alive anymore.
Yeah,
But they keep going through this anyway because it's just like that's the only thing they know.
Mm-hmm. It's the only thing they know how to do, and it could also be a religious metaphor because there's the Jesus fish that swims against the
Oh,
stream,
look.
and
Yeah.
they might be searching for Jesus, or they might be searching for God or something,
Yeah.
anything, and it might be them just finding shadows of it. Might be a
Yeah.
metaphor for that because it's the Old Testament. They never got Jesus,
Yeah.
so
I mean, we
they're
say this, and like, there's like even there's influence, like, so the boy is carrying a weapon, and the weapon is
yeah.
sort of like, the weapon is cruciform. And let's just get it out.
It's
And
very crucifix shaped.
yeah, it's very crucifix, and there's like we see his hands are bandaged, and and Oshii never makes like Oshii doesn't go, hey, this is like this is what you think. It just actually goes, yeah. If you're paying attention, then you think that's who you think it is, and
Yeah.
that sort of then colours your viewing. I would say this as a lapsed Catholic, and I immediately went, hang on a minute, his hands are bandaged and he's carrying a cross. Jeez, I wonder what this represents.
Yeah. And I'm Protestant, just Protestant. You
Yep.
can,
Yep.
you Catholics can throw your jokes, whatever. I know what you've done, but anyway, but it works because the gun
Yeah.
or whatever the weapon is clearly serves a different purpose, but it is, enough. It's like, yeah, I see what you're doing. I see what you're
Yep.
doing. That's a cross, and
Yep.
um, I don't know. And now that I'm thinking about it, like, like
Yep.
could the soldier be Jesus, or like
Yeah,
what
it's
happened?
like, yeah. It's
Like, oh my
like,
God, it's one of those where it's
yeah.
that this is every art film, and you sigh when you
Yeah.
see it like so blatantly wrong, but it honestly does not occur to you when you're watching the film, and then you
No.
meditate on it and you think about
Yeah.
it. And I remember going out of the movie, and there was just somebody just explaining it to everybody. I don't know how much that went over,
Yep.
but it was the guy who's the smart one, who's the explainer of the group, was
Yeah.
explaining, and it's just, but it's very much one you ruminate on, and then you discover things, and even if they're like simple things or obvious things that in other films, it's like, oh, this is a discovery. This is something I found.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. You can bring this to obviously. So the boy and the girl sort of spend time in like each other's company. So she's carrying this. Obviously, the titular egg. Ironically enough, the title actually came from. The title came from Toshio Suzuki, the Studio Ghibli producer, and at that point he was Toshio Suzuki, the guy who was the editor of Animage, but soon became Toshio Suzuki producer, and then Toshio Suzuki, the guy who says, "Hayao Miyazaki is definitely retiring this time, definitely, yeah." And
Yep.
obviously Suzuki gave it that title. So the titular egg is this egg that the girl is carrying around. We have this sort of very unsettling sequence at the beginning of this sort of bluish bird in these sort of like pod style like egg ovomes that are like off the ground. It's a really weird, quite unsettling shot, but it's like and how you have the girl sort of talking about the egg over the top, but she protects this egg, and there's sort of like imagery again of like she has got that she tucks the egg under her dress, and therefore she looks pregnant, or which obviously is a whole different imagery you could get into again from a Judeo-Christian sort of Christian sort of background. It's like, is this Mary? Is this some sort of symbol? It's like it's the sort of thing you can sort of go. You can absolutely, and I would be really intrigued to see if there is a reading of this from someone who is like somebody like from what's the term? A theologian. I would be really intrigued to see a theological reading of Angel's Egg, because there is obviously so much like Christian imagery in this. I think a theologian would have a fun time watching.
Yeah.
As I said, then we sort of, they sort of spend time in each other's thing. He steals the egg from her and gives her back, and there's a sort of very, there's a couple of like weird, scenes where they are like in each other's company, and she takes him to see this like skeletal bird, which is the only thing that obviously get left over from the looping film intact. Weirdly enough, that angel fossil would then reappear in 009 Re-Cyborg, which is like a film done by Kenji Kamiya, who's like one of Oshii's like sort of protege.
009, yeah, that's the Cyborg series. The only thing I have is like the all women version from the 2000s, where 007, her name is Connery. And it's very much a 60s spy thing with cyborgs and stuff like that.
That's not the thing that had the terrible Netflix.
No. It was a anime gold rush, but it's kind of it's the same property. It's one of those properties that gets like Ghost in the Shell. It gets reimagined over and over, but like the Japanese want it more than we do.
Okay. Yeah, whatever the flip. Now come to me. Anyway, but that's sort of like this, and it's this again. This really quite sort of like we need to talk very briefly about the score for this, because the score is just incredible. It's done by Yoshihiro Kano, who I know very little about, and Kano doesn't even have like a Wikipedia page, which is indicating like I don't know whether he never did anything subsequently, or like who did something. Apparently he was like just an animator, which is like very peculiar, but apparently this is like I can't see like anything else for this guy's like score. But the score
it's not like Bram Stoker's Dracula, where they got like somebody who composes symphonies and stuff, and they were like, okay, here's my 10 minutes of music, because they're so careful with composition that every note is like poetry, and it has to be in the right place, so they don't work like film composers. That was my first thought, but he
has been around for a period of time. It looks like he's actually otherwise an experimental composer. I'm looking at his like Discogs, and he is mostly doing like things I would describe as avant-garde music, rather than mucking about with the anime. But it's a very unnerving sort of like the score is like it's strange. It's sort of like it's mostly
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of choral work in it, and like it sounds in places like there's a little bit of the touch of Ligeti, sort of that very unsettling, clustered voice sort of thing that the Shining soundtrack has on in
Yeah,
places.
it's very discordant, and
Yeah.
it it
No.
fills the silence with the mood that
Yeah.
just like like you said, it's
Mm.
unsettling and it's very,
Mm.
oh gosh, I
Yeah.
like
And that's getting a
it it,
re-release
it gets it
alongside
gets it
the
has a
film.
tactile feeling
Mm.
more than it has a descriptive feeling, because it's just like you can feel like the black wind of the night, or you can feel
Mm.
like eyes upon you, or like
Mm.
the dismal scenery, and
Mm.
that it gives the feeling onto your like skin, like you're feeling what the world is.
Mm. Yeah, that's also getting a re-release alongside. Like, if you're an Angel's Egg fan as I am, this is like Christmas arriving just over the horizon. They're re-releasing the art book, which is beautiful, which is obviously like loads of Amano art. They're re-releasing the soundtrack on vinyl, which is beautiful and has Amano art. And this is getting like a 4K restoration. Obviously, it's had a 4K restoration, which obviously I'll
Yeah,
let you talk
I
about it
was
in a bit.
there. I watched it, but it's getting released on Blu-ray, and I imagine
Blu-ray, yeah,
like straight
yeah.
4K uh
Yeah, like
disc release.
in most territories, which is incredible
Yeah.
because this is like we'll get to like the what happened to this after, but in a bit. But this is sort of like the vibe of this is the best word I could describe is melancholia. It is a this is where we really get into, well, how are you? What is your reading of this film? Because it is easy, and there are academics who have sort of wrongly gone, Oshii is a Catholic. Oshii is talking about the a world without God. This is like this is like a failed version of the world where like Noah's Ark, they never found land, and there's the last shot of this, obviously, which we'll get to when we get to spoilers in a little bit. Really sort of impacts and goes, no, this is there is something has gone terribly wrong here, and
Hmm.
there is this, but the sense of it, there is the sensibility I read into this is that there is some, and I think you need to obviously be careful about this. There is some loss of faith in higher powers, whether that's
Hmm.
a Judeo-Christian God, whether that is in whatever is inside, or whatever has created the large mechanical sun, whatever used to inhabit these things, whatever is sustaining these sort of fishermen has gone. It is a world without us a hope, and into it have drifted these two people who don't really know where they've come from. And it's at this point, as I think you mentioned, you can look at Samuel Beckett and go, I see what's happening here. This is
Hmm.
a work with two characters waiting or looking for some higher power. In this case, it's a giant skeletal bird, and going, where have we seen this before?
Yes.
Yeah, you can honestly read this as a Beckettian tragedy about the last. That's the thing. This is how open Angel's Egg is to interpretation. It is like, is this the first and only Beckettian anime? Is this a
Maybe.
Samuel Beckett
I'm
work? Is this
anime has been so widespread that I don't think you can say that, but maybe. Maybe.
Godot, waiting for Godot? This.
Yes.
Yes, if somebody wants to do a Waiting for Godot anime adaptation, please cast Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters in it, because I would watch that. Anyway, but that's the sort of thing you can read this into. I personally, as I said, perhaps this is perhaps my implication as a lapsed Catholic. I read this as this is a world where something has been lost. I don't know whether I think somebody more in touch with their faith would probably go, this is a world waiting for the return of God, and at the end of the film, in a sense, God returns, and the person who believed in God is rewarded in a sense for their belief, and the disbeliever, the person who sort of mocked the believer sort of is left on a beach to sort of mull over what on earth has happened.
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
My own thoughts are it's about how you lose faith going through your life, because obviously the girl is a child, the soldier
Yeah.
is not, and the soldier has obviously coming from war where it their machines
Yeah.
seem to be fed with blood, and as possible Jesus, but has got experienced like the shitstorm that is whatever this world is. And um it is there's a part at the end where we only see a reflection of her as a grown up, and it's after like the end of the film. Should we just do spoilers right now?
Yeah, let's get to spoilers. I mean, I just want to talk about
Spoilers,
like
spoilers.
one like
Okay,
I just want to talk
but
about a
let me
couple of
finish
things
first.
very
Let
yeah
me finish first. Okay,
yeah
it's
yeah
just like we only see her as an adult after the climactic action of the film, which is one of the two things that have happened in this movie,
yeah
and that is when we see her as a reflection as an adult, and she does not become an adult until she has lost the one purpose she had. But that is only one facet. But like the belief that is as pure as it is, and is often wrecked by the world and by especially by the people who have seen it, and that may or may not be Jesus, depending on. But it
yeah
is like the world run by humans just wrecks shit, and you know they're they're chasing ghosts, they're warring with whatever unseen force. It's not really important because the world they return to is empty, and what are they fighting for? But it's all all of that, and she grows up when she loses her faith, and that might be, or she loses her egg, and that feels like the cycle of faith, and that's probably there are a lot of religious stuff like people like Oshii and Hideki Anno who did work briefly on this, and probably Amano as well, because Vampire Hunter D is you know interlaced with Catholic stuff because vampires, but they probably have a lot of thoughts on religion, and clearly Oshii has memorized a lot of religious text, as we will find in Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, but
yep
um, he it feels like they're thoughts that you cannot grow up um,
yeah
without losing this, but
yeah. So a loss of
what you
innocence,
were, what
essentially.
loss of innocence, and we'll talk about like the scene you want to talk about in a second, maybe what that implies, but yeah, there is this enshrining of your pure faith when in this world it is impossible to have it, and that's kind of my reading.
Yeah, I mean, Oshii himself has been very guarded about it. This is like Oshii in a 1985. This is almost contemporaneous interview with Animage that basically the contents of the eggs are representing hopes and dreams. The existence of which may or not cannot be proved. And basically, this is about, again, it is about, the loss of a loss of innocence, a loss of dreams, a loss of, of hope. Although Oshii seems to be far more like, you know, obviously we'll come on to it in a minute. Oshii's view on this film seems to have like matured and sort of like at the same time it's part of like his body of work, and I couldn't find anything Amano said about this film in very
Hmm.
much thing. Um, which is interesting because like obviously Amano is like one half of this production team, and you know it's strange that like, I couldn't find very much obviously about this or like the sense of this, but yeah, there's one sequence in this that I think particularly sort of like colours my view of essentially it's two sequences back to back. And there is this other reading and I'm sort of obviously not gonna go into detail. There is this reading of the film which you can obviously. There's two sequences very very closely back to back, which are okay. We're gonna get spoilers now. The egg is broken. The egg gets broken, and obviously she has a very strong and very very visceral reaction to this. But the shot that really sort of unnerves and disturbs is this sort of two that's immediately preceding the sequence where the boy breaks the egg is this 2-minute locked off sequence that has this, and I can only describe the energy as sort of Lynchian. This Lynchian sort of locked off shot of the boy just sitting there by her bedside, waiting, with the sword, etc. And there is an unsettling energy to that sequence, and you can read the destruction of the egg as something more than a metaphorical destruction. I feel is where
that's kind of what fed into my reading, is that it's metaphoric because egg and something that's that shape. And if we're gonna talk about innocence and dreams, like literal like loss of innocence there, and like that, and that kind of leads you on the way to like how you become an adult is suffering, and that is what the world builds upon you.
And there's this obviously the voice acting, and the voice acting is sparse, but the voice acting is very very good. And we have not seen, neither of us have seen the English voice acting. I would be really interested to see how whether it captures that understated, given it's G Kids, I imagine, and given that apparently one of the two voice actors is a huge fan of Angels, like I am absolutely sure it's fantastic. But the girl who is voiced by...
I watched the subtitles just because the dub was at 9 o'clock, and I work at 5 in the morning these days.
But there is so the tone for the boy is played by Kinpachi Nezu. I mean, it's taken us an hour to get to, who obviously most notably was in some Oshii things, but also in Kajamusha, which is the Kurosawa film, and the film Farewell to the Land, which obviously went into Japanese Film Festival. He has unfortunately passed. The voice actress for the girl is Makai Hoidoko, who otherwise appears in a lot of 80s anime. If you can name an 80s anime, she's in there. She's in there. She's obviously and she's in Skycrawlers as well. Which doesn't surprise me. Yep.
Yeah, it sounds very much like Oshii casting, because the main woman in Skycrawlers is Rinko Kikuchi, who you was nominated for an Oscar. Is a mostly live action actress.
Yeah, completely. But no, she and following this sequence, it's some really really good voice acting from Mako Hidoka. This blood curdling scream from her, and it's just like there's a sense of like that is absolutely like a. You can read this into this what you do, and that is certainly something you can and people have read into it as there is an act of violence against the girl by the boy. That's and that would there's obviously elements of that. And obviously she falls into despair because the entirety of her life has been assumingly protecting this egg that will soon hatch into some sort of new entity in this dead world. You know, there's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she obviously, we get to the climactic sequence, and you know, we I mean, that the animation on that is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's really like dreamlike. And then we end up on the beach, and the sun rises, and she is now part of this strange mechanical thing as a statue. And yeah, guess what? This is a giant boat.
It's a giant what?
It's a giant boat.
Yes.
Overturned boat.
Yes. Where in the middle of the movie they are talking about Noah's Ark. They're literally reading, you know, the story of Noah's Ark. Or repeating it, I should say. Yeah. And it's Noah's Ark after it's been abandoned, and they built an entire whatever this world is, where, you know, we don't hear the voice of God, but we pretend we do, or, you know, we think we do. We have the eye of God, which could be like the glasses eyes from Great Gatsby. It's my favorite novel. What am I doing?
Yeah, absolutely. This sort of empty, sort of like, you know, lifeless thing that just goes up, that obviously rises in the morning and descends in the evening. It's like it is just on.
I am pretty sure Oshii read Gatsby, because that is very like the eyes of God watching over this wasteland of people who have been just torn apart by whatever people with power have done to them, or whatever this world has done to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, you know, there is, you know, as I said, you could honestly sit down at this, and you could read this as, you know, you can read this film. This is the beauty of this, and this is sort of thing. But the ending shot is absolutely crystal clear. A direct visual homage to the end of Solaris. It is like it's not even trying to hide the sensibility. It is like, no, this is the end of some Mamoru, this is Solaris. We're watching Solaris here. What are you doing? You know, it's one auteur sort of doffing the hat to another, I think, is sort of, I choose to regard that theme. But it is that same sort of lingering horror of, you are not where you think you are, sort of a sensibility. And, you know, Solaris's end is, you know, to end up on this sort of like dreamlike other planet. I mean, you've seen Solaris, you know, to end up on this other planet, and sort of, you think it's sort of like Central Russia. No, you're on the Solaris planet. You are, you know, on this weird planet where sort of, you know, your dreams and sort of, you know, reality and sort of like fantasy intersect in unsettling ways. And here we have a world that obviously, you know, in where the absence of a higher power, which Solaris again sort of, you know, plays with as a metaphor, as an imagery over its 3 and a bit hours, sort of, you know, does in a similar way.
Yeah, and also, you know, I just want to say, this is our interpretation. Like, I'm not out here saying everybody else is wrong or anything. I'm not being
completely
like the atheists out there who like sometimes become worse than the people that are in a way, because this becomes their only identity, is just being an atheist, and or, you know, and just like shitting on everybody else. But like at the end, the egg or whatever comes from like her lost innocence or whatever just spreads, and it rehatches into something else. So there is that idea that she lives on, and you can take that like has, you know, her faith, her dream, her ideal, it lives on. Or, you know, you can take it more, you know, uh, cynically and say she is just made more of a part of the machinery that pretends all of this has a purpose, like
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
ghosts chasing the fish.
Yeah.
So, but
She's just part of
you
the
can
quite
take it how
literal
you
machine. Yeah.
how you may.
Yeah. Oh, completely. You could like absolutely like you may just read this as hey, this is a really good fantasy story about like a boy and a girl in a strange world, and his sort of his impulsiveness and greed in taking and destroying something that isn't his. That's you can read this. You could read this on any flipping you know this has been critically sort of gone over by so many people.
Mm-hmm.
You will what is said. What I suggest is said ironically an hour and something into this podcast is you should watch this film and form your own opinions.
Yeah,
This is very much our reflection
it
of we are seeing.
it is an expression, and it is expression that is a mere more as much as it is a expression by the artists.
Yeah, oh, completely. Um, and that kind of became a bit of a problem because Mamoru released this and everyone went, "What the hell is that?" Yeah, this is one of these ones where like I feel like Oshii has a very nuanced view of this now, but in like if we'd asked Mamoru in like 1987, what do you think of Angel's Egg? There would probably have been swear words in it because he didn't work for a while after this got made because
Mm-hmm.
he was basically built a reputation of being really difficult of making weird avant-garde films.
Yeah,
And then he made
like
Partner which
this
was
was a hard failure. The like the Fountain comes to mind, but
oh
like
boy, yeah.
Darren Aronofsky, like it really feels like he wants to rip off a bunch of anime people's careers because like this is similar to the Fountain, and it doesn't help that his next movie was Noah, where they made him chill the hell out on that. And
Oh god, yeah.
gee, Noah, but the
Noah,
Fountain
no,
is a
oh my
lot of
god.
metaphorical. It's all this metaphorical weird shit
Mm,
shoved into a film that was really
mm,
expensive and failed,
mm-hmm.
and just
And now it's
coincidentally,
regarded as a cult success, yeah.
yeah.
As a piece of
But
cult cinema, yeah.
coincidentally, Aronofsky did his next film on Noah.
Coincidence? I think not. Anyway, but yeah, Oshii did not work until Part Labor and like which I think was 89. Which is like, obviously there was like, there were things for him to work out, and obviously there's like the worst quote I found about this from like Oshii was Oshii's mother, who basically watched Angel's Egg and said nobody will watch your films anymore, which is harsh.
Yeah.
Miyazaki also doesn't like it, but then again, Miyazaki sort of like I feel Miyazaki, writes in a way where he has a very particular sense of thematic sort of things he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
He appreciates the film, but he describes Oshii as a guy who goes on a one-way journey without thinking of how to get back.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Well,
I think
yeah.
the most nicest way of Hayao Miyazaki going, I don't understand what you're doing, boy.
Yeah.
So this
It's
did not do well, in
well.
the it did okay. It was like I feel it's obviously built a cult following in Japan. I mean, it's been released on Blu-ray like a decade ago, so I think at this point it's like it sort of built up its own sort of cult sort of thing, and it sort of has become like this very almost mystical sort of thing. It's sort of like one of
Mm-hmm.
these one of these sort of lost pieces of cinema. One of these pieces of things like the uncut version of Magnificent Ambersons, where it just became this sort of mythical sort of thing that there's this film called Angel's Egg and it's done by like the Final Fantasy art guy and Mamoru Oshii who did Ghost in the Shell, and you can sort of find it on the internet and it's very weird and sort of esoteric.
Mm-hmm.
We'd say that apart from a film called In the Aftermath
Yes.
Oh boy.
Which is I
Yes.
like I don't even think I ever got the full explanation of how this happens, except like Australia somehow got the rights to it, and
Yeah.
they put live action
So
footage and made their own thing.
So inevitably Roger Corman got involved.
Okay,
Which is
that makes sense.
So Roger. So I don't know how. And this is where the things get really confused. I don't know how Roger. Apparently Roger Corman just got the thing in a distribution bundle, which means that basically Roger Corman's production company, New Island Pictures, were apparently just may have been sitting on Angel's Egg for about the last like 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just basically. Nobody understood this weird Japanese film. I mean, this is obviously, this is 1987. This is
like height of blockbuster consumable media rental stores. Like,
yeah.
They didn't even understand Brazil to a certain extent.
No. This is the sort of point. I don't even think 87 and anime in 1987 is going to be people. You might get a few cartoons which appear on American television. You might get sort of things that would eventually end up in the West in 3-4 years. I mean, at some point we've got to get my friend on this because he obviously knew people who were working.
It's a lot of things inspired by Star Wars. A lot of things inspired by aliens.
Yep.
Oh, and sorry if you can hear a noise. Apparently, they just started working on the basement.
As they do, yes. If you can't hear noise, don't ignore that. But it's a sort of It's very much that sort of thing where this is the thing. We are dealing with basically pre the boom. The boom doesn't really happen until 1991. Ghibli, you might get a few Ghibli films, but that's about it. And Roger Corman goes, "Hey, let's make a film out of this, but let's put in live action footage." And they kind of have this very strange, hodgepodge thing. So it's what are we watching here? What is this? It's this weird Roger Corman butchery of this film. And that is how, you could have actually watched Angel's Egg for, the last 39 years. Well, 30 odd years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably where its rights complications went because nobody knew how to get the rights to this until last year. It was in such an insane shambles. And at one point a few years ago, we thought Draft House Cinemas had gotten the rights, and they'd set a showing for their Halloween thing. And I don't know how you set that up for Halloween, but okay, you got it. Let's watch it. And I watched it disappear off the list. And I wrote the guy who was in charge of telling everybody it had been canceled. And it's I'm going to guess it was a right issue. It's oh my God, you're right. A rights issue. It's yep. Okay. Whoever tried to sell Draft House, it might have been Corman, might have been somebody else, didn't have the full rights. And then G-Kids figured this out. And then, we had that we got it sorted out and got it released in a relatively short amount of time, given 40 years.
Yeah, I remember last year, and it was the slowly the sort of the creep up of going, hang on a minute. They the first thing obviously this is obviously I'm literally looking at my feed from in my conversations to you, Joe, and it's 8th of May last year. It's Angel's Egg will be remastered for 40th anniversary under Oshii's supervision, and then or worldwide sales rights being announced, and then on last New Year's Eve, it was 40th anniversary, the year of Angel's Egg, and it's like, I can remember vaguely losing my shit at you, I think, and then it went to Cannes, and then it went, and it's like, you got me in the background sort of slowly vibrating with excitement, and then we got, and obviously you've now seen it in the cinemas. I really hope it gets released in this side of, obviously, the Atlantic, because I want to see this flipping, this has been 40 years in the pipeline, and I want to goddamn see this thing on a big screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous. I would say the only thing is there are a lot of like old animation tricks, like where what you're animating is a slightly different color than, or slightly lighter. Like when you watch old Scooby-Doo episodes, you know what drawer they're going to open because that drawer is slightly lighter. There's some of that, but that's just old animation. That's just it being cleaned up for 4K. But other than that, it is an absolutely beautiful film.
Yeah. It is edifying to see this get eyes on it. Joking aside, this has been something I've championed for, God Almighty, since I knew about it, which is going back, God, 10, 15 years. I remember seeing this in like 2011, 2012 and going, holy, this is like, what is this? What am I looking at? It's, and to see it finally get its moment in the sun is beyond like edifying.
Yeah, and I've seen this in very fuzzy, very foggy 2040K
and 4K
fan subbed version that has been passed around a long time, and it was kind of a rite of passage if you were a quote unquote anime snob, that you had to watch this movie because it's just like the secret title we give, and now it's just here, now it exists, and now it just like it got reviewed by Roger Ebert's website, which that might not mean
surreal.
As much, but
surreal.
It's very surreal that this exists in the public now.
And so the other thing, it really underlines and emphasizes, I do not think this would have got a release for its 40th anniversary without the existence of those fan subs. There wouldn't,
absolutely not.
That groundswell, there are people that, as I've shown people this and gone, people who are like really into anime, and it's like, oh my god, I've never seen this before. What is this? And I'm going, this is 40 years old. They're going, how have I never heard about this before? And it's and it's like, you've got the old Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing. You gotta keep circulating the tapes with sort of things like this. There will be other titles, I guarantee, that other people will champion and will talk about on this podcast in years to come. That will be like, the only reason this got a release is because somebody 25 years ago took a copy off a laser disc and uploaded it to a computer and burned it to a video and burned that video, and somebody else burned that video to a digital suite, and now we have a nice clean copy of I don't know, some film or other that then basically gets a groundswell of support and gets released. That is the how we get undiscovered gems like this film.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the landscape is getting to where all the companies are super protective now that we have the landscape where we can do this, that we don't have like the fan sub sites anymore that have hundreds upon hundreds of titles you can grab if you can just like poke the whoever's got the torrent up and like, hey, can somebody get on this for like an hour? And so it's getting less likely. But on the other hand, like, also things like Macross are coming out that have been in Brights Hell for 40 years, and that's my big thing. Even though it's not nearly as like prestige, it is. I don't want to say guilty pleasure, but it's definitely like very much pop culture entertainment. Except for
it's still important.
Macross Plus. It's still extremely important. Macross Plus it would be the difference, but it's not my favorite just for various reasons, but Macross Plus is one of these art pillars like Angel's Egg. So there is that, but that one did get released, and which is why people know what Macross is, which is why all of these kind of things are important, even if they didn't make a whole lot of financial success, even if they weren't, super loved. Like these are important pieces of art that, you know,
Yeah.
created the landscape we are in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Oshii makes Ghost in the Shell if he doesn't make this film.
Oh God, no. And this is the other thing. I think also the landscape is, I know this is probably where something really weird and esoteric comes out next year and proves me completely wrong. But the landscape for films like this, outside of really, somebody with a lot of money making this as a passion, but I don't think films like Angel's Egg would be get made nowadays. There is, at least in the form that we get it. I think if you were making something like Angel's Egg nowadays, it will probably be done by like Voices of a Different Star, from a Distant Star, the Mamoru, the Masato Shinkai
Shinkai.
film. I think this would end
Yeah.
up getting made at home by somebody over like
Yeah.
5 years, and then appearing on
Or
YouTube, and everyone going, "What is this? And what the hell am I watching?"
and Megalopolis would probably be the
Oh God, yeah,
biggest example of this in the past year, which is why
yeah,
I am one of the defenders of it. Like, you people are acting to Megalopolis like the people acted on Angel's Egg. Like, like, oh, this is boring nonsense trash. Extremely different though. Or
yeah,
Kubrick's last film, Eyes Wide Shut. Like that. Like until Martin Scorsese spoke up and called that one of the top 10 films of a decade, everybody just flushed that down the toilet. Like it
yeah,
was a waste of time. It was boring. It's nothing. What the hell was Stanley Kubrick thinking? And it's that was the response. And
yeah,
like there's something in Megalopolis. There's going to be some 6 hour essay someday, but
yeah.
that is
That's for
kind
somebody
of
else. That's for
that
somebody
is
else.
what kind of films we're talking about here,
Yeah,
and
you.
why they so rarely come out, because like Megalopolis lost a shit ton of money
Yeah,
and critics hated it, and I have not met somebody who was like, oh, I like that.
yeah. The thing is, it has been with. I definitely. I don't think just the anime industry. I think the cinema in general has become far less risk. I mean, obviously, there are people who can make risks, and you get things like Sinners, which was an exceptionally good film, and you got a lot of really good horror this year, which obviously all of which was like a lot of which were original story, concepts and stories. But how often that's 2 or 3 films out of a sheet of a slate of like 600-700 films this year. People don't make risks anymore, and and I think you need to watch things like Angel's Egg, and I think you need to watch things like Megalopolis and go, you know, this is what the payoff can be if you take a risk, if you make
Well,
something that is, yeah,
well, I wouldn't
yeah.
say the payoff was great for Francis Ford
Well, the
Coppola
payoff
on
was
that,
great.
or anybody. Like
No, he
this
sold his
is the
winery.
response to it right now. And
Yeah, but
what it is, we'll find out. But this is what happens
yeah,
to most movies like this. And this is a
yeah,
modern example. Like, it was critically trashed. Very few people went to it. It lost a ton of money, and now it's back in. It's like it's
nice.
into it's back into its
Yeah,
cupboard where it came from. And I maybe you can get a 4K. I mean, I'm sure if I looked I can find it, because
yeah,
like, but it
yeah,
like the anime Gold Rush version of this Technolize, it I got it on DVD. There was a short Blu-ray release of it, and now it's vanished and you can't find it. Like, I
yeah,
mean, I'm sure you can find it online. You can find pieces here and there, but you can't find a legal way of watching it. And it is that kind of difficult art film, like, just
yeah,
the everything is a metaphor. Like, everything is just a rumination that, and we spent so much money on it that it's
Yeah.
that like a modern a common audience, like a common, I'm a common person, but it's just like a mass audience doesn't know how to respond to this. And when they can't respond to it, they respond hostily because that's a, I don't know if that's a challenge or if it just activates a fight or flight, or if it just like it gets into you psychologically, like there's something wrong with me.
Mm, yeah, I mean, I'm literally looking at Technolize, and like, if you want to own like all of Technolize on DVD, probably remortgage your house at this point because it runs from about 30 quid for like this is obviously when anime was like on DVDs and like the series was split over about 6 or 7 DVDs. Technolize's DVDs range from like £30 to £260. This is
Yep.
what happens when you. This is why physical media is important, people.
Absolutely. So like
yeah, keep
it,
circulating the
it
tapes.
I don't want to say people don't take risks anymore. Like people
Yeah.
rarely do this, and there is good reason. Everything is a cycle, and I feel like we're in one cycle. I don't know what breaks this cycle. None of us do, because like I don't know what used to be cycles has changed. Like it used to be a franchise got popular and then it stopped being popular, and then they try to bring it back, but all the kids are like, nah. But we have like Simpsons has never stopped. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles get reinvented every like 2 or 3 years, and
Yeah.
we just get stuck with franchise upon franchise. That's where we are right now. Like that's not going to be forever. Nothing is ever permanent, but that is certainly a change to the cycle that we normally have, and it will break.
Yeah.
I don't know what breaks it, except for just like we've been sloshed on Marvel stuff for decades, and we're getting to a decade past when they were doing the stuff that people wanted instead of just like, okay, what do we do next? We tried this didn't work, but we have to keep this plan, but this didn't work.
Quickly,
Um,
children, Doom. Put Doom in it. Put Doom in it. Oh wait, we did that. Oh no, we decided to bring the one actor who said he wasn't coming back to this to do Doom, and it's like, and it's just yeah,
mhm.
I think we are entering a period where, like the end of the 1960s and the early 1970s, the studio system is falling flat on its face because it is just like everything has ended up as part of like one or two like two or three like massive conglomerates, and people are starting to go, we'll go back, we'll see something go back to the sort of the stuff of the
Mhm.
the early 1970s and the early sort of 90s, where people go, I don't need £100 million to make a film. I can go and do this for like 20 million or like 10 million or like 200,000 quid, and it's like, and I don't know where the anime industry is going to go in that sort of period. I think
Yeah.
I think Japanese foreign policy is going to see the country turn inward, and I think a lot of this collaboration with
No.
Crunchyroll will fall
Yeah. The
by
problem is
the
everybody's
Netflix.
going
Yeah,
inward is the problem.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that they did that like
Never
at
ends well.
the late 2000s, early 2010s, and just like it took like until like Eden of the East and the uh, the
Yeah,
Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya to kind of kick it back into a
yeah.
balance. But
We're getting to the
yeah,
20
we'll
year
see.
sort of 20-year anniversary of that sort of stuff now. I
Yeah,
mean,
we're
yeah,
yeah we're getting
we'll
the
have to
hard
wait.
anniversaries of that, and then um,
Hmm.
but right now we are getting like Demon Hunters films are making tens of millions of dollars
Oh
in
yeah,
America.
yeah,
Um, I don't know how Your Name missed all of that money. I mean, it made some, it just didn't get that money, but like
yeah,
Your Name is like an absolute crowd pleaser made by somebody who doesn't normally do like
yeah,
audience movies. Like these are for his ideas, and his characters are on the side, and it's just like, oh, hi, I'm Makoto Shinkai. I'm going to write like a fully developed female character for the first time, and he made the biggest anime film of all time until like the Demon Slayer movie.
Yeah, those
came.
have been those Demon Slayer, like both of the Demon Slayer films and the Chainsaw Man movie have been monsters. It's
Monsters, yeah,
genuinely,
absolutely.
yeah, genuinely
Like,
like
it is very
holy shit.
weird to when I'm
Yeah,
working mornings and they talk about the box office recap for
it's like
the week, and it's just like Chainsaw Man blah 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 arc. It was in third, and it's just like they have nothing
yeah.
else to say about it. It's like, yep, it's that anime shit. It's making money.
Yeah, and unlike Demon Slayer, they can't show any of it on like morning TV. It's like, oh
No,
yeah, this no no.
well,
We
they
might
can
we
show a
might.
clip, but it's just like
Yep.
it was very not. The image was
Yeah.
metaphorical. You didn't see any of the blood. Like
Yeah.
what was being done was shown off screen, and whatever was happening was only
Yeah.
implied.
What is this weeb shit? Oh my god, it's like, is this Pokemon? No. Yeah, but that's the thing, we've got background, and I think, it's sort of interesting to sort of look at Angel's Egg with that 40 years of hindsight and go, hey, Angel's Egg is coming back into Japanese, into like Western cinemas at a point where, like, anime has never been as a cinematic, thing bigger, but that's how this is obviously but it's easy to sort of look at that, and it's easy to sort of build meaning upon this, and it is just fantastic to see this to see this in the public eye. This is
Hmm.
this is really quite edifying for me to go, hey, that film I was talking about to like 3 4 years ago, and I joked about how it would be really cool if that got a re-release, a Western release. It's like, oh, it got a Western release. What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and as much as I could disagree with certain things, like I'm not a particular fan of Darren Aronofsky, but like I am glad that things like The Fountain,
Mm.
Megalopolis, Angel's Egg, whatever else
Yeah.
are here, even if I'm not the one like into it. And like other and like the only things that you'd call are
Mm.
successful is like was Pink Floyd's The Wall, the movie, successful?
Yeah.
I believe it
Mm.
was. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, to a certain
It,
extent, but like
yeah.
that is like the exception, and that is one of the biggest bands in the world making,
Yeah.
their
Their
signature
movie.
film.
Yeah. But this is the thing. This is the thing. I think it's sort of with so just my last point on this is that with cinema's sort of obsession with instant success, it sort of has crowded out films like this, and okay, there is a very very different budgetary concern between between Angel's Egg and Megalopolis and other experimental films that sort of have since become didn't do well at the box office but since become cult. It's you know and obviously streaming has sort of replaced, but I don't think streaming can ever really replace the joy of coming across something, as I said, as I've come
Hmm.
across with Angels 8. It's something that is this sort of hidden gem of a genre, and it's with our obsession with more instant gratification, it's nice to see something correctly herald correctly sort of uniformly sort of go, it is good that this is actually finally getting a Western release and the plaudits it deserves.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Mm. Yeah.
And it's just, you know, keep your feelers out for other stuff,
Yeah.
and, don't
Yeah.
be afraid to go off track,
No.
even if you find something you absolutely hate, because I have absolutely done
Yeah.
that for
Oh
movies
god.
like these, but I'm still glad these movies exist.
Yeah.
And they need to find something, and like it's a piece of art. It's like all art,
Yeah.
that we are here, that we are discussing it after 40 years, that it was just like just declared this failure and warped into the phantom zone, that um and that it can be still held up in this cult audience and still
Yeah.
show up again, and we're here talking about it in 2025 in
Yeah.
America, thousands,
Yeah.
and Great Britain, thousands upon thousands of miles away from where it was made in another
Yeah.
language, and that we can get
I think
here
you could. And then you
is
could go and see it in a multiplex cinema at
yes,
like
yeah,
7 o'clock in the evening on
a
not an art house cinema, but a proper
yeah, an
multiplex
AMC. It
cinema.
was an AMC
An
cinema,
AMC.
although thankfully it started right at 7 because it was I think
Yeah.
it was one of those digital
Oh.
presentations where they got it from somewhere else.
Mm.
They didn't have a copy there, or whatever
Yeah.
else.
Fair
And
enough.
like the digital cinema is a whole different thing. But like you go out there and you have like Raiders of the Lost Ark references, and there's a bar there. You can get like Marvel themed drinks. Like that, you
God.
can do that now, and
Yeah. Go and
it's
see something art house like a
yeah.
40-year-old Japanese animated art house film that basically seemingly sunk without a trace for 40 years. It is the sort of the beautiful power of cinema.
hmm and the beautiful power of audiences who can keep it alive,
Yeah.
uh, and hopefully we can keep it alive, and we don't
Yeah.
everything does now that we have the ability to preserve these things and keep them alive, that everything doesn't break apart the moment we can do all of this, because some people who have too much are like, I need more, I need control of the future, and then they just destroy the future, which is what is happening more or less in this world, is that we
Yeah.
can do anything, but it doesn't make the people in control enough money to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as I said, yeah, but this has been like we finally talked about Angels 8. We finally got it through. Got it.
Yes.
It's here. We can now talk about it in a format where we're not going to have to go and yes. These copies are.
Talk to the man in the cloak in the corner. Um, he'll give you the torrent link and
VHS.
a couple other things. They might not be your thing. They have some like
Mm,
nudity and some like really outdated
yeah.
humor, but they're fun. They're fun. Just try them out.
They're fun. Yeah. 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 That's the thing. That's the thing. I feel you have to. You have to champion strange and um strange in it. You have to challenge. You have to champion films that challenge, and
hmm
this is a film that I feel challenges its audience and holds up a mirror
And
to its audience, and yeah,
and to a lesser extent, things like this, like Monster on Netflix, and then the adaptation of Pluto. Which watch Pluto. It's like they took Astro Boy and made like Minority Report and Total
yeah,
Recall out of it, and it is amazing. It is just this awesome thing that people aren't watching because it's Astro Boy and they're trying to be adult with it. Whatever. No, it's
yeah,
strange, but you'll like it. Just try it out. Just go
yeah,
try it out. Or if not,
yeah,
try
yeah,
Monster. It's like all of those,
yeah,
uh, HBO shows that you really like that are twisty and like have a lot of character. It's like those, but anime, and you'll be fine. It's fine.
yeah.
Go watch it.
Yeah. Go watch it. Once you finish watching that, go and read everything else that Naoki Yatsura has written, because that guy is one of my favorite artists, and some of his stuff is never going to end up as an anime like Billy
Yeah,
Bat. You're never getting a Billy Bat anime. I'm sorry.
and 20th Century Boys, they're
Yeah,
trying with it, but it is just it is too
yeah,
much.
yeah.
It's
And
like
and
they
once
tried
you've
to
done
make
that,
a Da Vinci Code, but except they made it 50,000 more lore.
yeah,
Like there
yeah,
is way too many characters, way too much going on. I mean, I don't want to say it's exactly like Da Vinci Code, but it's that kind of thing where it's a sprawling story and there's so many elements to it, and it keeps you wondering what's happening next. But
yeah.
it is
Go read
weird,
that.
but weird.
Go read that. It's nearly Christmas. Go buy yourself a couple of volumes of it, and go buy yourselves a couple of volumes of Vagabond. Vagabond is great, and we'll never get an anime either. It's like
Nope.
go find new things for yourself. Don't just sit there and just watch. Not some of the stuff on Netflix is fantastic. Obviously we mentioned 2 shows that are on Netflix, but go and ask, people who've been in the anime fandom for like a long time, what would you recommend? Talk to people. You know,
Yeah.
this is the whole point of anime fandom is that it is a fandom. It is a group of fans. You know, introduce an anime fan. You know, somebody. You know, if you go and watch Angel's Egg and you like Angel's Egg, introduce people to. You know, tell people about this film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're listening to us. You must have like, you know, if you're listening to us after an hour 40, and you must have been invested in us talking about it enough to sort of carry a little bit of that enthusiasm forward. And,
yeah, this went on longer than the film.
This is like the person who's come to clean up the popcorn has arrived and is like going, can you leave us?
Can you leave?
Now,
you leave. But I'm waiting for the Marvel ending. Like, you know, Samuel L. Jackson's going to show up and invite the soldier to, you know, not the Justice League. I know, I'm fucking with you, but you know, whatever post, you know, cinema thing they got.
Angel's Egg 2. This time it's eggier. Yeah, I think that's where we start. We ourselves bid you a fond farewell, because it's like this is actually nearly twice the length of the movie. Yeah, but it's like, you know, Angel's Egg hopefully is obviously when it does get a release, because I love this film so much, I will literally put like the US and the UK place to pick this up, because it's like, you know, again, buy this thing. If you love physical media, buy a film. Don't worry, wait for it to sort of turn up on screen. Buy things, own things. Anyway,
yeah, because the people who like Discotech Media, they're like, we have lowered as much of the cost of them once, and we are obsessively working for not a lot of money. Like, the only way we can do this is if you buy it. Because we have done all we can to get this to you. So, and that's what they say for a lot of things. Like everything they say on their announcements. If you want more of it, buy more of it. So, that's you know...
The only way you're going to keep the physical media going is by buying physical media. Sorry, there's no cheat code where you go,
no.
Oh, but I bought it second. No, buy it. Buy it. Even secondhand's fantastic, because you own the thing and you can go, hey, you know... Anyway... We've been the Thom and Joe show. This has been Angel's Egg.
Yes.
We've enjoyed our time here in our like extended rant on like why physical media is important and why noble failures deserve to be supported. We can be found on Patreon at the Thom and Joe show. Thom is spelt with a H. You know, if you want us to talk about something you hold dear, you know, some anime film that, you know, you hold very preciously in your heart, and you go, I want more people to talk about it. Come talk to us. We will, you know, we can arrange something. We can come and talk. We can talk about. You can show us something, or you can let us know about something you hold dear, and we can talk about it. And you know, more people can, you know, find out about it.
Yes. Okay. Well, I gotta take a nap now, and I've gotta, you know, think about things for a long time, because this thing has really made me think.
I've got to go wander off over here with my big Amano sword and do things.
Stay away from my egg. Stay away from my egg, Tom. It's my egg.
Your egg. Okay. We've been the Thom and Joe show. I've been Tom.
I've been Joe. And I'll just be going this way. For a while. For a long, long while. Don't follow me. Don't follow me!